Speaking of the media, you have to hear this. We got a couple of get this kind of news stories today. This is one of them. Last night on CNN, John King, USA. Here is a portion of the host. John King apologizing for an earlier guest. The guest name is Andy Shaw, the executive director of the watchdog group Better Government Association, and some remarks he made during his appearance. Listen to this.
We were just having a discussion about the Chicago mayoral race just a moment ago. My friend Andy Shaw, who now works for a good government group out there, used the term in the crosshairs in talking about the candidates out there. We're trying to get away from that language. Andy is a good friend. He's covered politics for a long time, but we're trying to get away from using that kind of language.
Serious, folks. CNN issued an apology for a guest using the term in the crosshairs. Well, hey, Mike, I'm going to change the soundbite order. I need to find Wolf Blitzer and Sheriff Dipstick, because that also happened on CNN, and this is just classic as well. Looks like 17 through 20. Folks, I play this again. Play number 3. Again, or not number 3, whatever it was. Number 22. They're dead serious. They're dead serious. They wonder why they have 54,000 viewers, age 25-54 at 8 p.m. during Spitzer and the Ditzer. 54,000 viewers. We have that many on the corner of 4th Avenue and wherever in Oshkosh. Listen to this again.
We were just having a discussion about the Chicago mayoral race just a moment ago. My friend Andy Shaw, who now works for a good government group out there, used the term in the crosshairs in talking about the candidates out there. We're trying to get away from that language. Andy is a good friend. He's covered politics for a long time, but we're trying to get away from using that kind of language.
What does somebody watching CNN think when they hear this? When they see this? Somebody, if I were watching, I would have said, why don't you just reshoot the interview? Just reshoot the interview. What is this apologizing for in the crosshairs? My gosh. It says it harkens back to Ted Turner. You couldn't use the word foreigners for a long time on CNN. And then you couldn't use the word terrorist for a while. And now you can't say in the crosshairs. And I wonder if they would apologize if I were on there and said, why don't you guys just reshoot it? I marvel.
I don't know what to say. I just love it. Notice the sincerity here. The hand wringing. We're trying to get away from that language. Now, that was last night on CNN's John King, USA. Last night on CNN's The Situation. So, therefore, what happened here with Wolf Blitzer and Sheriff Dipstick was before this happened, with John King apologizing for his guest Andy Shaw using the term in the crosshairs. Situation room, Wolf Blitzer interviewing the Pima County Sheriff Clarence Dipstick, and we have 4 sound bites, and here's the first.
Some of your critics say you're basically implying that, Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or Sarah Palin may have created the environment that led to this massacre.
Well, I think all the flamethrowers are responsible.
Give me some specifics. Who?
Well, you mentioned 2 of them, and I think that people who go out and call for people to take the Second Amendment up in order to resolve certain problems, those kinds of statements are so vitriolic, and I can't tell you how vitriolic the campaign was against the Tea Party candidate that ran against Gabrielle Giffords.
Does he realize what he just said there, how vitriolic the campaign was against the Tea Party candidate that ran against Gabrielle Giffords? So there's Wolf Blitzed. He slips back into fair journalist mode. Here's the next segment of the discussion with Sheriff Dipstick.
In your investigation over these 10 days, Sheriff, do you have any information that leads you to believe that this alleged shooter, Jared Loughner, was listening to these, what you call flamethrowers, whether Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or anyone else on the left or the right? Do you have any specific information that he was influenced by them?
No, I do not, but I can tell you that he has been preoccupied the last 3 years with an elected official, government official.
You're talking about this congresswoman?
I am.
Gabrielle Giffords. But because we heard that he had Mein Kampf and the Communist Manifesto, among other books, in his possession. Based on what you know, was he more influenced by the left or the right?
I have no way of knowing that, Wolf.
Well, isn't this just peachy? Sheriff Dipstick doesn't know anything. All he knows is that Loeffner hated one politician, Gabrielle Giffords. Now, do I need to get into a logic explanation here? The sheriff has just explained, unbeknownst to him, what might be the root of this event. He doesn't have any evidence that I, or Beck, or Palin, anybody
responsible for this even had any language responsible for it, but he can say that that Loeffner was preoccupied the last 3 years with an elected official, a government official. Who? Gabrielle Giffords. Sheriff, many people hearing this might think, the way you've been talking lately, that you're all of a sudden now blaming her. The guy was preoccupied with her, not with me, not with Palin. Preoccupied with her. Let's keep listening as Wolf Blitzer tries and tries again to get into the deep, dark crevices of the mind of Sheriff Dipstick.
Because a lot of people are asking, Sheriff, if you don't know that he was influenced by these individuals, whether Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, or anyone else, why make the accusation that they helped create this environment that resulted in 6 people getting killed?
Well, it just happens to be my opinion based on 52 years in law enforcement.
You're just speculating.
I am.
Well, that's going to make law enforcement happy. He's speculating as to who's responsible for a crime based on his 52 years in law enforcement. And Wolf Blitzer says, you're speculating. Yeah, I was speculating. I mean, Sheriff, if Jared Loeffner was focused on a government official for 3 years, where the hell were you? It seems to me to be a rather obvious question. Sheriff Dipstick here admits that Loeffner had it in for Gabrielle Giffords. And Gabrielle Giffords, unfortunately, in the hospital. Meanwhile, Sheriff Dipstick is blaming me and Sarah Palin. Wolf Blitzer, the purpose of the interview, they're trying to rehab the sheriff here. They're trying to get the sheriff back on the side of credibility by kind of, yeah. But no, the sheriff is sticking to his guns, so to speak. So, I apologize to CNN for the phrase sticking to his guns. But that's what the sheriff is doing here. So finally, Wolf gets Dipstick to admit that he doesn't have evidence that Loeffner even listened to the radio.
Because I just want to make sure that you don't know something. I know you know a lot more about this investigation than I know or our viewers know.
No,
but you
Wolf,
don't have any hard evidence.
Stop the tape. Wolf, no. He doesn't. That's the whole point, Wolf. He just got through telling you that for 3 years the shooter has had a hate-on for Gabrielle Giffords. And where has the sheriff been in all these 3 years? So here's Wolf. Now you see they're trying to rehab the sheriff. They like the sheriff. He's a good liberal. He's law enforcement. They want what Dipstick says to have some credibility. By the way, Wolf, let me ask you a question. Given that John King's apologized for the phrase in the crosshairs, and I can't say CNN should reshoot the interview, and you think you might want to change your name, Wolf? Blitzer? I mean, nobody thinks of the reindeer when they hear that term. Blitzer sounds like big-time force being used to overcome an opponent. Yeah, Blitzer is like a little Mein Kampf lingo. Well, anyway, that's just something for them to think about. Here's the final soundbite.
Jared Loeffner was listening to Rush Limbaugh on the radio.
I don't know what he listened to on the radio.
All right, so you're not backing away from that controversy. You know you're going to get a lot of criticism for making these statements, Sheriff, but you're not backing away.
Well, the flamethrowers are pointed at me almost everywhere in the country.
This just the only thing I know to do here to be polite to laugh. The sheriff now thinks the flamethrowers are pointed at him everywhere in the country. So I guess it's okay for the sheriff to come out and defend himself with idle speculation. But if I do it, or if Palin does it, why, it's too defensive and it's tantamount evidence of guilt. I don't know, folks. It's one of those get this episodes, and there are two more. Here's one. You may have heard that Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman is not going to seek another term in 2012. Now, Joe Lieberman ought to be the poster boy for the kind of new bipartisanship that the news media and the rest of the Democrats now claim that they want. Who is it? On the Democrat side, who has done more reaching across the aisle? Who has been very civil? I was going to say, who has been more civil than Joe Lieberman? And yet we're now told that he's so unpopular with the Democrat base in Connecticut that he doesn't stand a chance of being reelected. And yet he's the model for what we all should be. He's bipartisan. He is civil. He crosses the aisle. He works with the other side. He is the shining example. He fits the mold. And speaking of bipartisanship, the New York Times in 2006 refused to endorse Lieberman because he was too bipartisan. He was too the Times didn't endorse a single Republican for Congress in 2006. That's how nonpartisan they are. But Lieberman was too bipartisan. He was too wishy-washy. They instead endorsed that nutcase on the left, Ned Lamont. Another get this story.